try to give you the 50,000-foot view. I'm an internal medicine physician, and towards the end of my Navy career, began teaching health informatics at the University of West Florida for about 13 years. But during that same time, I was lucky enough to also do research. As an example, thanks to the wonderful products that Jeremy produces, we put actigraphs on the Blue Angel pilots. And that actually showed that they work just as well as the expensive avionics package. Second of all, with Lloyd, so there's some links here, we did an interesting project where we happen to have 300 detailed family histories, and we applied neural networks and could predict the future, the offspring, the health of the offspring using that. During that same time, it created a new textbook because there was a void. We self-published. It's called Health Informatics Practical Guide. It's now in the 7th edition. And this year I started a new textbook, Introduction to Biomedical Data Science. That's a refresher, and hopefully bring everybody up to speed from spreadsheet all the way to AI and everything in between. So that being said, that's enough introduction. Let me just begin with why I like the term data science, and because we're in healthcare, it's biomedical data science. It's a convenient umbrella to dump everything into. That's the way I look at it, because it's gotten to be somewhat confusing. I try to avoid some terms like data mining because, believe it or not, the statisticians and the computer scientists don't always agree on definitions. That's just a fact. Not to mention terminology, but here's the way you can compartmentalize it and make it stick. It's three things: computer science, math and statistics, and biomedical, and in this case, domain knowledge, healthcare. In other words, it could be business, but it's healthcare. In the middle is biomedical data science. This doesn't show AI, but it belongs with machine learning, and the next slide will make that clear. But I would have to say, number one, that it's all based on math, really. And that's the cornerstone. Second of all, how is this different from any other data science? Two major things. One is we have bioinformatics, which is genomics. That's becoming more and more prevalent, looking for cancer targets, drug targets, you name it. Super important. The other thing is, unlike economics, our data is messy. It's downright filthy. Meaning, tremendous missing data, 70% is unstructured. You can't mine it without something like natural language processing, which is an AI thing. So, let me show you the next slide. If you wouldn't mind, I'll just tell you to advance it if you don't mind. Okay, so this is just my conceptualization, so make the data science the big umbrella. Next comes artificial intelligence, but you notice I don't put machine learning as exactly the same thing as artificial intelligence. Anybody know why? The reason is AI started off with simple rules or expert systems that you could write. If this is a patient in the ICU and the blood pressure is less than 90 systolic and the temperature is over this and the pulse is over this and the lactic acid is over this, boom, 80% chance of sepsis, okay? Those systems didn't work out very well, I might add. And I'm going to, in a second, tell you, so all the machine learning belongs in AI. Deep learning is specifically artificial neural networks, which are more complex, which I'll show you in a second. Next slide. So some definitions, and believe me, you can find your own. If you don't like mine, pick your own, because I told somebody that even when you look at Venn diagrams, there's a website that just collects Venn diagrams on data science. That's all that blog does. So anyway, AI is systems that display intelligent behavior to achieve. It's alive, it moves. Does that mean?
Yeah, so you can move it.
Is that how you do it? Whoa. It's more magical than neural network. So machine learning is a field that uses algorithms to identify patterns in data, but it's important to note that it's a major source of when you say you're doing predictive analytics. That's what it usually is. And deep learning, I'll show you the next slide, all that is more layers. In fact, the definition is 3 or more layers of neural networks. Next slide. This is a simplification, but basically your input, these are all little computational nodes that basically input data, attach weights to it, and then compute it, multiply and add. And you can go, one of the developments was back propagation, where it goes back and forward. The first one actually was 2 layers, input and output. The significance of these layers is this is what's gotten us further ahead now in the last couple of years. But these all compute, and they basically it's a handoff. When they're done computing and waiting, they go to the next layer, so that if your input is an image, let's say a retina, then your output will be a retina, and it can grade how accurate it is. Next slide. So the history, I had to throw that in. Who was that? Who created the first algorithm? I wasn't alive then, so I don't. Barely, just anybody?
Jesus.
Thomas Bayes, or B, I think it's really pronounced Bees. What was his day job? He was a great statistician. That's not his job. Presbyterian minister. I had a Presbyterian minister, he didn't teach me anything like that. All right, so the terms AI and ML were actually defined or postulated is what I put, because they just threw those terms out hoping it would stick. Shortly thereafter, the first true neural network was developed, 2 layers. And what's important is, thanks to deep learning, with all of those layers doing way more things, within the last 3 to 4 years, suddenly they say, well, look, it's classifying this biopsy as accurately as a pathologist. But in 2018 and 19, endless studies showed it exceeded it. In 2000, and also, not to mention, big things like, anybody know what the Oriental game Go is about? In 2016, they beat the world champion. Why is that important? Go is far more complex than any game on the planet. So that was a huge historical footnote. Here, I'm just mentioning these. If time permits or anybody's interested afterwards, and they want to know what's hot, what's been published in the last year, I can go over that next. Because I promised I would give you the 50,000-foot view. I think this is the last slide, I believe. But I think just one more thing to orient you, because you hear this if you read anything. Supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and I'm going to throw in a third curveball because it's important. Supervised learning is you're predicting something, and you know the outcome. Readmissions, not readmitted. Cancer, no cancer. Diabetes, no diabetes. With classification, it means the term, the outcome, is nominal or categorical, like cancer. It's not numerical or continuous data. Regression looks at numerical data like length of stay, cost of the service. Unsupervised is fascinating because you don't know what the outcome is. You basically dump it into a pot of data. The best example of it, by the way, is genomic data. That's how unsupervised, meaning they find associations we had no clue existed. Association, this is called market basket analysis by our economic partners, but think about the Amazon recommendation. You bought this book, and they say, people who bought this book often buy this book. That's all due to association rules, okay? Not complicated. Semi-supervised is very interesting because the unsupervised goes in and finds new variables that you can add to the known variables. And it saves, you don't have to have as much training data. So I think we're seeing more and more of the combination of supervised and unsupervised with deep learning. Andy, I'm going to stop there. That's all the slides because I promised it would be the 50,000-foot view, not the 10-foot view. Questions about what I just went over? Have any answers? There's a lot we don't know yet.